Karen's voice could curdle milk, and her glare could make a pit bull tuck tail. She stood in the cul-de-sac, her floral dress straining at the seams, barking orders like she owned the whole damn neighborhood. I leaned against my unmarked sedan, playing the part of a bored newcomer, but my pulse thrummed with the kind of adrenaline you get when you know a bust is coming. For 6 months, I'd been embedded in this suburban hellhole, posing as a nobody while tracking a scam that reached further than Karen's ego. And trust me, that's saying something. Her so-called HOA security team flanked her 2 goons in thrift store uniforms who looked like they'd been hired off a Craigslist ad. One clutched a clipboard like it was a shield. The other fiddled with a walkie-talkie that probably didn't even work. Karen was the ringleader. No question. She'd turned this homeowners association into her personal fiefdom, extorting residents with fake fines, rigging bids for community projects, and strong-arming anyone who dared question her. The feds had caught wind of her operation laundering money through shell companies tied to the HOA, and I was their eyes on the ground, gathering evidence to bring her down. You. Karen jabbed a manicured finger at me, her voice a mix of scorn and syrupy fake charm. You're the new guy? Right. We don't tolerate slackers here. This neighborhood has standards. Her lips curled into a sneer, as if my existence offended her manicured lawn. I gave her a lazy nod, letting her think I was just another spineless tenant she could bully. Inside, I was cataloging every word, every gesture, for the report that'd land her in cuffs. The scam was simple but slick. Karen and her cronies posed as HOA enforcers, slapping residents with bogus fines for violations like unapproved mailbox colors or slightly overgrown hedges. Pay up, or they'd threaten liens on your house. Most folks paid to avoid the hassle, unaware the money was funneled into offshore accounts. The HOA board, either complicit or too scared to speak up. Karen's reign had gone unchallenged until I showed up, wired for sound and backed by a federal task force. See, we're forming a neighborhood watch, Karen said, stepping closer, her perfume hitting me like a chemical weapon. We need loyal people to keep things in order. You look like you could use some purpose. She smirked, eyeing my plain t-shirt and jeans like they were proof of my inferiority. The goon with the clipboard nodded eagerly, scribbling something that probably wasn't my name. The other one crackled his walkie-talkie, muttering gibberish to sound official. It was almost laughable, except for the families they'd terrorized into compliance. I played along, scratching my chin. Neighborhood watch. Huh. Sounds intense. What's the deal? Karen's eyes lit up, mistaking my curiosity for weakness. She launched into a spiel about protecting property values and weeding out troublemakers. Translation, join her racket, or she'd make my life hell. I let her ramble, my hidden earpiece picking up every word for the team listening a mile away. The feds needed concrete evidence of her soliciting for the scam. Offering me a role in her fake security crew would do nicely. The cul-de-sac was quiet, save for Karen's tirade and the distant hum of a lawnmower. A nervous neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, watched from her porch, clutching her coffee mug like a lifeline. She'd tipped off the authorities months ago, too scared to give her name but desperate to stop Karen's reign. I caught her eye and gave a subtle nod, a silent promise that this was almost over. She looked away, probably praying I wasn't another of Karen's stooges. You're either with us or against us, Karen snapped, her patience thinning. We don't need dead weight around here. Her goon with the walkie-talkie stepped forward, trying to look intimidating but mostly looking like he'd trip over his own ego. I suppressed a grin, These clowns had no idea they were trying to recruit a federal agent with enough evidence to bury them. My cover was airtight fake ID, fake job history, even a fake divorce to make me seem like a drifter who'd blend into their world. But every second I spent playing dumb, I was one step closer to dismantling their operation. Karen's pitch grew bolder. You'll collect fines, report violations. Easy money. We take care of our own. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And if anyone gets in the way, we handle it. That was the golden ticket to implied threat. The admission of coercion. My earpiece buzzed faintly as the team lead muttered, "Got her." I kept my face neutral, pretending to weigh her offer. Inside, I was buzzing. This was the moment we'd been waiting for. But Karen, true to form, couldn't resist overplaying her hand. She started ranting about a neighbor who dared to paint their fence the wrong shade of beige. We fined him $500, and he still hasn't paid. She spat. We'll have his house by next month. Her goons chuckled, and I saw Mrs. Delaney flinch on her porch. That was the breaking point. I'd heard enough, seen enough. The recorder in my pocket had captured every damning word, and the team was ready to move. Sounds like a sweet deal, I said, letting a hint of sarcasm slip through. Karen didn't catch, it was too busy basking in her own power. But I've got a question. What happens when someone calls your bluff? Her face froze, the smirk replaced by a flicker of unease. The goons exchanged glances, suddenly less sure of themselves. I straightened up, dropping the slouch I'd worn like a costume. See, I've been watching you, Karen. You and your little gang. Extortion, money laundering, threats. You're not as smart as you think. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. Who the hell do you think you are? She sputtered, her voice rising to a screech. I reached into my jacket, pulling out my badge with a slow, deliberate motion. The sunlight glinted off the FBI seal, and for the first time, Karen looked small. I'm the guy who's been playing you for 6 months, I said, and you're under arrest. The cul-de-sac erupted. The goons froze, their clipboard and walkie-talkie suddenly useless. Karen's face turned a shade of red that clashed with her dress as she screamed about lawyers and lawsuits. Mrs. Delaney dropped her mug, the porcelain shattering on her porch as she stared, wide-eyed. Sirens wailed in the distance. Me back up. Right on cue. I slapped cuffs on Karen's wrists, her protests drowning out the hum of the approaching vans. You can't do this, she shrieked. I'm in charge here. Not anymore, I said, guiding her toward the van as agents swarmed the scene. The goons were cuffed in seconds, their bravado crumbling like cheap drywall. Neighbors started peeking out of windows, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Delaney stepped forward, tears in her eyes but a smile breaking through. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded, knowing the real work was just beginning dismantling the network Karen had built, tracing the money, freeing this neighborhood from her grip. As the van doors slammed shut, Karen's screams faded into the background. The cul-de-sac was quiet again, save for the soft chatter of neighbors stepping onto their lawns, reclaiming their space. I looked at the mailbox where someone had scrawled that note, Karen's reign ends, a takedown tale. It was messy, handwritten, but it said everything. Justice doesn't always come with a gavel sometimes, it's just a badge, a recorder, and a neighborhood ready to breathe free. This wasn't just about Karen. It was about every bully who thinks they can rule through fear. Every scam that preys on trust. I'd spent 6 months in this suburban cage, watching her hurt people, break them down. Now, she'd face the consequences, and this neighborhood would heal. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it would. And that was enough. The end.